Today I'll be talking with Jonathan Bradley, who's been practicing Diamond Way Buddhism since 1997. In this segment, we'll be talking more in depth about Diamond Way Buddhism. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, nice to be here.
So we're going to talk some more about Diamond Way Buddhism. So tell us, what is Diamond Way Buddhism? Where does it come from?
Well, Diamond Way Buddhism comes from Tibet. It is part of the 1,000-year-old Tibetan Karma Kagyu lineage. The Karma Kagyu lineage was founded by a man named, what came into Tibet through the work of a man named Marpa Lotsawa. He brought the teachings from the Indian yogis of India, Tilopa, Naropa primarily, brought those yogic teachings into Tibet and began what is now known as the Karma Kagyu school of Buddhism. Diamond Way Buddhism is part of the lineage itself, but also the Western lay arm of the Karma Kagyu. And we have about 700 centers and so around the world. We're on every continent. And these specific centers were founded by my teacher, a man named Lama Ole Nydahl, and his wife Hana. They were the students of the 16th Karmapa. His name was Rangjung Rigpe Dorje. They were the first Western students of this Lama. And they studied with him for some years in India, and then were asked to bring these teachings to the West. And since the late 60s, 69, 1970, over 40 years of work, these 700 centers have sort of risen up.
That's a lot of centers.
There's a lot of enthusiasm for this kind of work around the world. It's, I think when I started in 97, we had maybe 10 centers in the United States.
And in New York?
In New York, we just had a very small group. I mean, all the Diamond Way centers around the world it's a grassroots organization. We've decided that we're not going to be professional Buddhists. No one's getting paid. It's all done through friendship and idealism. And so the center started in New York in 94, and was just an apartment in Astoria with some friends. And over the years, I came in 97. And over the years, we've been in Brooklyn, we had a center in Chinatown, and now we have a great center on Park Avenue and 28th Street. So it's been quite a journey. We have 70 members now. We're the largest center in North America for Diamond Way, largest Diamond Way center in North America. And, we have a pretty good time, meditating and practicing Buddhism together.
And so how did you find it in 97? How did you just have a friend who was doing it and get involved, or did you, I don't know, could you have found it on the internet, or how did you?
Well, I had always had an interest in different traditions, from India or Asia and so on. But I had just recently graduated from college. I'd just come back from a trip of, backpacking through Europe. And I just found an email in my inbox from a man by the name of Tasso, who invited me to a Buddhist lecture, saying there was this thing happening tonight, and I didn't have anything else to do, so I just went, and there was 3 gentlemen there who later would become very, very good friends of mine. Short talk on Buddhism, we meditated together, and then we went out for beers. And I thought, this is great, some really reasonable people. It's not too exotic, but also it's meaningful. And I came back, and a few weeks later, Lama Ole himself made an appearance in New York. And then I was very, very impressed. And
with the Lama Ole?
Yeah, spontaneously felt very close to him and very touched by that experience, and decided to really start focusing on Diamond Way Buddhist practice.
So what other practices had you tried or before you came upon Diamond Way?
I think, different yoga or some Taoism was interesting, things like that. I also spent a lot of time doing some, postmodern psychophysical theater things with a lot of physical techniques and so on. I've always been, like most of us in our groups, kind of an experience type, like I'd rather just jump in the water and swim around and see what happens. Rather than maybe, come in gradually. So I jumped in a lot of waters and really felt very at home and connected when I met Lama Ole.
And that was what drew you in and has kept you there all these years.
Yeah, I mean, it was really like an experience, something that happened. It really was not a intellectual experience for me. I mean, I like to say that in Diamond Way Buddhism, in Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, we have maybe two kinds of practitioners. You know, we have people who are very intelligent and reasonable in that, you know, they see a teacher, the teacher says, you know, he's teaching something, and we say, maybe I'll check them out for a little while, see if they walk and talk the same.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, if the teacher proves himself to be responsible or trustworthy, then the student opens up and is available to learning from their example. And through their example is how the teacher shares their experience with the student. That's probably the most reasonable kind of person. Myself, I would say I was just kind of stupid but lucky. Stupid because when I met Lama Ole for the first time, it was not a rational thing. I was completely blown away. It was like an atomic bomb went off in my brain. And I was like, sign me up. And I was lucky because Lama Ole, my teacher, is responsible. And what he has taught me over the last almost 17 years now is how to become more independent like he is, more stable, more useful for others, more confident, more capable. And so I didn't think about it too much at the beginning, but at the same time, I was lucky in that I opened up to the right person.
I mean, so do you feel like you could have had this experience with the wrong person?
Oh, sure. I mean, history is full of examples of people having that experience with completely the wrong person, politically, you know, with national movements and so on, or also with different spiritual teachers. We often say that religion has probably caused more death than war, and you know, it's a very, you know, it's a very easy thing to see. I mean, the power in that relationship is like a knife that cuts in two ways. So if we open up to someone who is not responsible, we give them our trust, we can be easily abused and taken advantage of. But at the same time, if we open up to someone who really legitimately understands, in this case, something about the mind, something about the nature of our mind, they can share that experience with us and make us like them. And this is exactly what Buddha did 2,550 years ago. Buddha didn't want worshipers, Buddha wanted colleagues. And this is why the stream of Buddhist practices continues to this day, is because the Buddha gave showed his students their own Buddha nature, showed them how to awaken to their own mind. They showed their own students. And this activity has been passed down as a living thing until today. And there are people living in this world who have accomplished, you know, the same or something very close to what Buddha has achieved and can pass that on. So when we make that connection, it's like a ring and a hook coming together. And if the connection between the teacher and the student is right, if the student is open in the right way, if the Lama is qualified and responsible, then one can develop very quickly, because it's not an intellectual exercise. It's actually a sharing of experience that's passing between two human beings.
That sounds great. I want to sort of jump into a different topic, which is to talk a little bit more about the Diamond Way practices.
Sure.
So we did, in the other segment, we had done that, the meditation on the Buddha. What other practices might somebody get involved in if they continue with Diamond Way?
Well, what you would start with in our centers, if you came in the doors, you'd get maybe a short introduction about why we're here and why we're doing this and what the point is, what the goal is, because one needs some information, because you can meditate and get a lot of different results. And then you would start with what we refer to as the Guru Yoga on the 16th Karmapa.
Which is similar to the Buddha.
Which is similar to the meditation we just did. Instead of the golden Buddha form, we use a form of the 16th Karmapa, our teacher's teacher. He has a black crown and holds some objects that have some meaning, you know, about mind being space and bliss inseparable. And we meditate on this form in the same way. We receive the lights, we say the mantra, Karmapa. And then there's a point where, you know, the meditator and the object that we're meditating on dissolve and mix together, and we rest in this space that is there. This, what we consider, maybe we can get a taste of what our mind really is in this moment. It takes a long time to work in this one moment, what they call the completion phase of meditation, but we get a taste of it. If someone is, you know, feels at home and wants to go deeper, we have a practice that we call the short refuge, which is we meditate on what we call the refuge in Buddhism, the things that we can really rely on. Primarily, that's Buddha, represents our mind, the limitless freedom of our mind, the beyond personal limitless freedom of our mind that is there whether we know it or not. And the teachings that bring us there, called the Dharma, and the successful practitioners and friends and helpers on the way, which is called the Sangha. These three things are called the three jewels. All Buddhists everywhere take what we call refuge in them, or we have confidence in them. And also we meditate on the Lama, which is the closest representation of the three jewels in our experience right now. The Lama has meditated on and become a refuge for others through practicing Buddhist methods, and so really sits in the center and is the closest thing to us, is our closest, most available access to experiencing the refuge for ourselves. So we make this short refuge where we meditate on these three aspects, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and the Lama. And we make a mantra that we repeat 11,111 repetitions. That's not at the one session, but you count it up and you do that. If you then say, that's great, what's next? We have another set of practices called the Nundro. And these are, classically it's called the Chakchen Nundro, the Nundro that prepares us for Mahamudra practice. These are a set of 4 practices that were developed by the 9th Karmapa. And the first of which is an expanded refuge meditation, where we meditate on Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Lama, the methods the Lama gives us called the Yidams, and the sort of protection that we get from having a living teacher or someone who's walked the same path before us. And in this meditation, we remove a lot of pride, this idea that our happiness is more important than someone else's. Instead of seeing this search for happiness as being something that equalizes all of us, we tend to make it exclusive when we experience the world through our ego. So this meditation kind of breaks this down a little bit. And we meditate on the full Karma Kagyu refuge tree. We make a physical prostration where we lay down and stand up and say a mantra. We complete this meditation when we've done 111,111 repetitions, actual physical prostrations. So maybe you wake up every day for a while, do a couple hundred, you keep a tally in a book somewhere, and when you hit the top number, quantity equals quality in this case. For all of the Nundro, it's a very brilliant system. By doing a lot of repetition, we replace bad habits with better habits. It's how we got our habits in the first place, is through repetition. So we use the same method, you could say, repetition, to sort of develop or open our mind in a new way. When we complete this practice, we move on to another meditation. It's called Diamond Way meditation, or Tibetan, the name is Dorje. Sanskrit, his name is Vajrasattva. And in this meditation, we say a 100-syllable mantra. It's a Sanskrit mantra, and all of the sounds have a certain vibration and quality which influences our mind, so that when we recite it, we're attuning ourselves to something, to an activity. And this particular activity removes a lot of anger. When we imagine a white Buddha form above us with the seed syllable in his heart, and as we recite this mantra, white nectar flows down through our body, pushes out the soles of our feet, through our anus as pus and blood, and we remove a lot of very, very negative impressions, heavy things. I mean, individual results may vary. When I finished the practice, I had epilepsy for many years and I actually didn't anymore. So I'm not saying it's a cure for something like that, but I had a very...
but it was for you.
I had an outcome from that practice that gave me a lot of confidence in the methods themselves. Once we've removed a lot of things that we don't need, pride and anger, because anger itself is the most destructive of all the disturbing emotions we can have. I mean, we can build up a friendship for years and years and destroy it by saying or doing something in one moment. We can see how quickly anger destroys positive impressions. So we have to be the most careful with that. So we remove these two things. Then we do a practice that is called Mandala Offering. And of course, each one of these 4 practices is completed when we do 111,111 repetitions of this 100-syllable mantra, the prostrations, and in this case, these mandala offerings that we make. This is where we have a plate and some rice. Maybe we make it a little special with some jewels or crystals, or color the rice in some way. And we place the rice on a plate in a particular way that represents different symbolic aspects of the universe, beautiful aspects of our experience of the mind, all the things, the beautiful things that mind can produce. We do it formally, and we also imagine just amazing things, experiences that we can have for ourselves, you know, falling in love, happy moments from when we were younger, anything that's like shiny, nice, and special. We imagine that we put it on this plate and we offer it to the Buddha, to the refuge, to the lineage, right? The refuge and lineage represents our mind, which is the source of all qualities, which is the source of all impressions. In Buddhism, mind is like an ocean, and all of the waves that appear on top of this ocean are like the different thoughts and feelings or outer experiences that we can have. And so when we see that the source of the waves is the ocean, we develop a certain kind of freedom, a beyond personal freedom, so that as things change around us, we don't suffer because we're not attached to them or experiencing them in a personal way. We see them as the potential of mind to show itself in all qualities, in all ways. And this practice of mandala creates a lot of positive impressions because we make this offering to the Buddhas which represent that truth. And as we do this, we gain, we could say, a lot of positive impressions without attachment. We call that merit. And this gives us a lot of stability in our meditation practice. And it also allows us to open up more to the Buddhas when we call them to mind and meditate on them. And we finish this, we make 111,111 repetitions of the mandala practice. We move on to what is called the Guru Yoga. This is a specific Guru Yoga practice, the last practice of the Nundro, where we open up to the entire influence, or what we classically call blessing, of the Karma Kagyu lineage, the stream of enlightened teachers and the sharing of enlightened experience that has happened through this tradition since the time of the Buddha. And I mean, we could say that we just, well, the best way to describe it is when I was in my 8th grade English class, there was a poster that had Garfield on the wall, you know, and Garfield sort of had these books, you know, that were tied to his body, and it said, underneath it said, learning by osmosis, you know, learning through absorption. And essentially, this is how Tantric Buddhism works, Diamond Way Buddhism works. We call to mind the activity of the Karma Kagyu lineage, which is like a factory that only has one product, which is fully developed, fully functioning human beings. We can name all of the lamas who have held that transmission. We hold them in our mind, and we say a mantra that brings us very close to that activity. And we absorb that. It sounds a little bit unusual, but it's a very, very practical thing. And we come very close to the lineage itself.
So with these practices, it's linear, that process, those different meditation practices, it's linear, so you would
do those in an order.
And then you finish one, you do 111,000,
yeah.
And so you just do it linear. You do one, you do that until it's finished.
Usually with the first two, with prostrations and diamond mind, you can sort of combine them. You can be doing prostrations, and then also, unless you're really, really healthy, you can't do prostrations all the time. So, you know, usually we say if you keep the prostrations ahead of the diamond mind repetitions, you can do the two together. It's nice if you have a retreat day because you can do some prostrations and then sit for a while and then do some more prostrations. But when you get to the last two, then those are done in order. And once one completes the Nundro, then we do a more elaborate Guru Yoga on the form of the 8th Karmapa, Mikyo Dorje, which is a Anuttara Yoga Tantra practice. And it is directly working with the Mahamudra itself, which is this understanding that mind is clear light, mind is like limitless space. Everything about the Nundro that we do is to get to a point where we can meditate or understand what's happening in that dissolve phase. It's very short when we start, maybe we're not quite sure what's going on, but this is the most profound moment in the meditations that we do when the Buddha and our mind come together. And so the Nundro creates the conditions in our mind so that we can really have the right result in that moment. The 8th Karmapa practice is like a fireworks display. There's different Buddhas coming out of space and blessing us and influencing us and purifying us in different ways. And it all leads to this point where then all of these things come together and we rest, you know, maybe hopefully more and more skillfully, are more and more directly in the nature of our mind. But we have to remove a lot of impressions. We have to gain a lot of stability and good impressions before we can really work in this way. And that's what the Nundra is for. And this 8th Karmapa practice then becomes our main yidam, the thing we focus on the most. I've been doing it since 2003, pretty much every day.
It sounds to me like these practices or the Diamond Way, you'd have to really believe to be able to do these practices for 111,111 repetitions. It just from what you said, it sounds like you'd have to have a deep, profound belief.
Well, it's a really good question, actually. And it might seem like that. And actually, in fact, it's a little bit different because we often say Buddhism is not a religion of belief, but it is a religion of experience. And so what happens is, as we meditate, we start to notice that things change. First, we feel comfortable enough that we want to practice in this tradition. We like the people around us. We like the teacher, and so on. This is the first way of gaining a little bit of confidence. But then also, as we meditate, we notice that things change a little bit. And this also gives us confidence. This makes us say, maybe there's something going on here that's trustworthy. And that trust begins to deepen and deepen with our experience the more that we go down the path. Lama Ole often says that highest truth is highest joy, is highest functioning. So the basis of these meditations is the truth, right? Is this understanding that mind is all-pervasive, limitless space. Mind is fearlessness, joy, and active compassion. Sounds nice. No idea what that means, really. But if we finish the meditation and we feel a little bit better, maybe it gives us a positive feeling, we take that with us to work. We can say this is a little bit of joy, a little bit of good feelings, and we see that those feelings work in the world. Right? We apply ourselves in a way based on the feelings that came from that meditation. We might say there's something true about this view, about this understanding about mind being limitless freedom. And when we go back into the meditation, we open up a bit more and are influenced more by the Buddha form. And not just the form itself, but what that form is representing, which is this living transmission of experience that is embodied in our Buddhist lineage, that is being passed on from teacher to student. Marpa told his student that my lineage has a special power. His student was a man by the name of Milarepa, a very famous yogi in Tibet. And it has an enlightening energy. And this energy, or this quality, is behind these Buddha forms, is activated when, in a real-time situation, the Lama shares their experience with us, and the basis or the context for that experience is the Buddha form. So when we call that form to mind, there's a seed that's already planted in our mind through that connection that happened with the teacher that is reawakened. And that seed relates to the goal, this truth. So when we're more available to the form that we're meditating on, because of this trust that comes through our experience, we then go deeper and deeper into the meditation, and the results unfold more and more. And we simply trust because we function better, become more healthy, stable, capable, useful people in the world. So there doesn't have to be a belief to be a Buddhist, but you just simply have to try some things out and see if you like the results. And you go with the functioning, you go with the results.
So basically what you're saying is to go along, try it out, experience it, and then if you get some positive results, then you should continue with that particular practice. I mean, I'm sort of about to extrapolate that and say that that's probably true of any practice, not just Diamond Way, but whatever practice you pick up and try. I mean, because it sounds like you had tried a few different things that didn't stick, but then you finally found one that was really the one that you felt was most pertinent to you.
Sure. I mean, we always say, I think, the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
I mean, for me, the goal, the Buddhist view makes the most sense. And definitely can say I've had the most convincing experiences, trustworthy experiences using these methods. Buddhism is not for everyone. Our goal is not to convert the world to Buddhism. I mean, if you want to pray to a good God and be a good person, we hold nothing against you at all. That's fine. Buddhism is for people who want to know, but and not just believe.
Yeah. So we're pretty much out of time here. I really want to thank you for coming and sharing your experiences with Buddhism, and then sharing with us the whole path of Diamond Way, or not the whole path, but part of the path. I hope that people find, what you had said, I think that people have different inclinations, and I hope that people who are inclined to seek out Diamond Way will seek out Diamond Way. So I want to thank you very much for coming.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll see you in Manhattan.
Right on.